and I'm making breakfast. um, on Monday, we received a message from one of our friends who, a great supporter of our club, Bill Brooks. He has donated $150, and we made the deposit, and it's in our account now. He isn't able to always come to the fundraisers because of health reasons. And so whenever we do have a fundraiser, he tries to give a donation afterwards. So we thanked him, and we'll add him to our flyer that he has given us as a donation. Another matter, fundraiser. Remember last week I mentioned that we will have a fundraiser at the American Legion on the 28th of March, which is the last Saturday of the month. The American Legion has provided us with flyers, and excuse me, if you'd like to take one and put on the bulletin board where you work, they're up here. It's $10 a person and $7 for children. Because we had done a fundraiser with them in September of last year, we do know that we have to come up at least between $600 and $700 to reimburse them for the food that they will purchase and cook for the fundraiser. All we would have to do is serve and help clean up a little bit. This time they were able to give us our tickets. Farrell picked them up yesterday afternoon, and they're in small bundles of 10. So we're giving every member 10 tickets to try and sell before the breakfast. And if you sell any from now until each Wednesday before then, you can bring in your money and give it to Farrell, and we can make sure it's deposited and put under the fundraiser. We are also selling tickets at the door. Oh, by the way, when you sell a ticket, your friends and families or whatever, be sure to let them know that they need to have that ticket to come in to pick up their breakfast. Okay? Because we will not have a list of who you sold it to, only the numbers that you sold it. So be sure to tell them, keep that ticket, bring it in Saturday morning from 7 to 10, excuse me, and they can pick up their breakfast.
It's a designated fundraiser for the $1,000 scholarship.
Right. The students have a deadline of 15th of April to apply for scholarships at the high school. And then in May, scholarships are awarded during awards night. And Nancy Didmeyer from the high school, who handles the scholarship program, she will let us know after the 15th of April which high school student qualifies for our scholarship, because the significant part of it is a student or a senior who plans to attend a Voc Tech school. A lot of the Voc Tech school do not offer scholarships. Four-year colleges do. And a lot of the other high school students, they can apply as many times as they want as to, and a lot of them do get it. All they have to do is usually is write essays, 600, 1,000 words or whatever. And then plus they have to prove their grades, their GPA, and the college will then, let the school know that they have been qualified and would get a scholarship. Once we find out if there are more than one person who qualifies for it, then we would have to make a decision who would receive it. And then at the award ceremony in May, we would present a certificate that that student will receive a $1,000 scholarship from our club. And then once that student enrolls in the fall semester for classes, that school will notify us and we will send $1,000 check to the school in behalf of that student. Okay. So Farrell has a list and has the book tickets. If you do not have yours yet, please see him before you leave so we can start selling. And I'm going to put it out on Facebook, several places there, about the fundraiser so people know that we're going to be out selling our tickets. Okay. All right. Let's see. Next week is our board meeting. Please come. We do need to discuss some other things concerning our finances. We want to decide, besides the scholarship, where do we want to put our money into? Several people, information has as project graduation to help them out. There's some other things, but we need to know your input. Where do you want us to put the money? You help give the money by, helping with the fundraisers and being a member of the club. So we need to know what you want to do with that money. So please be here next week. Okay. Farrell, would you like to introduce our speaker?
I will. This is Kyler Langvardt. Many of you know Kyler already. He's going to tell us a little bit about his background, growing up in Junction City, and how he got into the business of being an extension agent for K-State and Geary County. Welcome, Kyler.
Thank you, Carl. Appreciate it. Well, good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
No need to clap. I'm not that important. I appreciate it, though. Thank you for having me this morning. I have to admit, I'm still becoming a morning person. So if I trip over my words or have to think a little harder, give me some grace. My name, like was mentioned by Farrell, is Kyler Langvardt. I'm happy to be here for you. My role is with K-State Extension of Geary County. I'm the Ag and Natural Resources agent here in town. And so I've been on the job, was telling you, for about 3 years now. So I'm still in that period where if someone calls and says, can I ask for Chuck Audie? And I say, you can call the new Chuck. Yep, that's me. So for those of you who got to know our previous agent who was here for 40 years, happy to carry on that legacy and continue the work in our county of great extension programs. A little bit about me and my background. I grew up just 7 minutes west here of town on a farm and ranch there with my family. We also have a couple businesses here in the area, one particularly in Junction City, the Junction City Sale Barn. So I grew up when we used to do old sales on Saturdays. Every Saturday I was there, and then since then I've been transitioned to Wednesday sales. And so help out when I can. I often joke that extension is my insurance job, and then the rest of my time gets to go towards the family effort, which I appreciate and like to have the opportunity to be around here. I grew up on that farm, went to Chapman High School, have a parent who's still a teacher at Washington Elementary for one last year. She's retiring, Jenna Langvardt here in town. And so we're going to celebrate that later this year. But I grew up on that farm ranch with Chapman and then went to K-State with the knowledge that I have an ag background. I'm probably not going to be the kid that ended up back on the farm itself, but still wanted to really be involved in the industry that I loved. And so I went to K-State and got a degree in agricultural communications and then eventually a degree in education as well before returning back here to K-State Extension, like I said, roughly 3 years ago. So my background is obviously a little more livestock based and a little more animal based. And so coming back into the county, it was a transition to kind of realize what all extension meant to Geary County. I grew up as a 4-H'er, and everywhere I go, I like to explain a little bit about what extension is, because I think extension is unique in the fact that we have something for every phase of your life, right? You all probably, I think many of you might have heard Renee last year, Renee Reedy, who was our fax agent, talk a little bit last year, and then some of you have met and worked with Ginger Kofer, who is our 4-H youth development agent. But for those of you who don't know a little bit about K-State Extension, here in the county, we have 3 agents, and those agents all specialize in different areas, different parts of livelihoods, so that way we can impact the whole community. Starting with 4-H and youth development, Ginger Kofer is our agent there. We have over 100 Geary County 4-H'ers in the county who are doing good work. Our big event of the year is obviously the county fair in July, but we do a lot outside of that. In fact, we just had a group of 30 kids go to the Capitol in Topeka and participate on the House floor and Senate through a Kansas 4-H program. So we love 4-H and we love the county fair, but 4-H encompasses a lot of the work that happens outside of the county fair and all the other fun activities we get to do with those 4-Hers. So that's great. And then you may have, like I mentioned, may have met our extension agent in Family and Consumer Sciences, Renee Reedy. She has been a rock star. She joined us last year. I think she met you very shortly after you joined. She joined our office last year, but she does great work as it relates to community development, family planning, as well as what she is kind of been asked to take over in a great way and has done a great job of it in Medicare counseling, excuse me. So if you have any of those questions, Renee is your gal. And I hear enough between our office walls that I might be able to answer a question or two, but I promise I'm not the expert on that. So my job as the Agriculture and Natural Resources Extension Agent is to help farmers, ranchers, and homeowners with their questions as it relates to the needs that they have. So if you look at my job, in particular, most of the calls that I'm getting, some of the big things that I help producers with is some on-site consultations. So Buzz is a great example. Buzz called our office the other day, needing some help with his trees. And so I was able to go check out those trees, do some work with him outside and help Buzz in that case. I do anything from lawn consultations, garden consultations, tree consultations, anything that's green and grown outside. Even if it's not grown, it's probably my territory. So happy to help people through that process. Other things that I help people with, one of the big things in county is we're really lucky to live in the Flint Hills, and that means a lot of folks have pasture land or land that they have either inherited from their parents or family members or in the process of transitioning. And so I help folks a lot of times talk about, lease law, how to write a lease for land, how to transition land, and even current prices and how we can start that process negotiating. So if you have any land questions, for example, if you have land that you're working with a producer right now, I'm happy to have those conversations. So that's another big area that I focus in. And so we also do a little bit of community development work. We have so many great groups in Junction City and Geary County who are also doing community development work. So we like to add on top of that in the ways that we can help. And one of the ways that we've decided, is great to help is volunteering across the community with many different events and even doing some guided facilitation amongst groups who are needing help with planning, strategic planning, all those things. Our office can help with those needs. So extension, I always say extension was the best precursor to Google that exists, because when you wanted to question, you probably called the extension office and we gave you a research-based answer. And we still do that. We absolutely still do that. I always say, as much as Google is my best friend, don't always trust the artificial intelligence summary when you type in a question on Google. Call us if you have any questions. We can always be your backup plan. We want to share the resources that K-State has, and we're lucky enough to be close to K-State here in Geary County, but we still want to make sure we're passing on all the good information that exists on campus here in this community. And so that's kind of my role with K-State Extension. And so one of the things that's coming up that will be a lot of my time here come end of March, early April and May is helping growers in the area. How many of you do any gardening or outdoor work at your homes, right? Okay, so several of us. One of the things that I certainly had to learn, because I did not grow up with a green thumb. In fact, I grew up on a farm where the message was, if it's, especially with grass, if it's green and growing, don't worry about it, right? It's just a yard. So I've been helping, been trying to transition into that learning process, doing as many visits as I can, helping people as much as I can. So one of the questions that I've been receiving lately is, last month I got a call from a couple, I'd say 3 or 4 people, who said, man, it's 7 degrees in February. Can I start planting right now? And I said, well, history would tell us no, right? We live in Kansas, and you all know what living in Kansas means, and that means we can experience all 4 seasons in 1 week. So as much as I want to encourage you to be outside and work on your properties and enjoy that sunshine, maybe we're not going to get sunshine this week. I don't know. It seems like it's just going to be overcast all week. But regardless, March and April is really the true times when we start to get outside, get outdoors, and start to make some of those big changes that you all are hoping to make on your homes, in the garden sense, in the tree sense, or even in the lawn/yard. I always joke that there's a difference between a lawn and a yard, right? Many of us want a perfect lawn. I just want a yard. I just need something that grows green and I can cut really easily. Some of us take pride in our lawns, but I'm good with a yard. So I always like to ask folks, what's your goal, right? Is it a lawn or is it a yard? So if you ever hear me say that, no, it's all about the effort you want to put into something and how much you can get out of that product. So here in March, in April is obviously our big time period to be outside. I did like to bring a handout for you. You'll find on your tables that item checklist for April. I'm still a person, at K-State Extension, we're great about handing you paper copies of things. And even though it's great to save paper, I'm still the type of person who likes a printout of things that I can look for in my home and yard. So hopefully this will be helpful to you. As we think about the months of March and April, we tend to think about March as a preparation month. So whether that is getting outside, tilling that garden, adding crabgrass preventer to your yard. I'm thinking about pruning any of those trees. March is our preparation month for lawn and garden. I'd say April and the end of March, first week of April is really the time for us to get outside and start taking action. So that's why on this list you'll find this is the grow list for April. Our list for March is much shorter, right? Because it's all about basically prep work. So you can start doing this anytime in April. Some of these things. How any of you flower lovers? Anyone have like a flower patch or anything like that? Okay, so some of us are growing just vegetables and other things. I'd say the most common one that I'm helping people out in Junction City, in the surrounding county area, is definitely lawns, right? There's been a really steady progression of people being out, wanting to be outside and wanting to take action on their lawns. And these last few years, we've been really lucky in the sense that we have gotten quite a bit of moisture in the past 2 years that have allowed things like our yard to kind of bounce back if they were in a hard state pre-2023 when we had some of that dry periods. So I will say, as we look forward this year, all indications are that we're going to have a more dry year. So for those of you who had house plants or outside plants last year, you probably dealt with things like fungus more than you had before. That was probably one of the top issues that I had people call me about, whether that was with their lawn, trees, or gardens, is that they were dealing with fungus. And fungus is usually a problem that we deal with because we have so much moisture, and that's a blessing, right? I prefer more rain and a little more fungus than the opposite. But this year, I think as you continue to work outside and see whether it be with trees, lawns, or gardens, I think the thing we're going to be looking out for this year is our pests, because with the way the weather cycle has gone this year, we have had a pretty warm winter, right? We have not really had not a ton of snowfall and not a ton of days below that freezing temperature line. I mean, there certainly existed. We had to wrap up at some points, but we may be out of the clear now. And so what that means is that when we have those fewer days of below freezing temperatures, it means those pest cycles, they never go away, right? Because they never truly die off in that cycle because of the cold. So you might start to see insects more regularly here in this month of March than you might have in the past few years, because they didn't, when they overwintered, they didn't die because it didn't get cold. And so you might see some more of those pests in your home, in your lawn, in your garden. So, one of the things that I can help with as extension agent as well is if you have a pest in your yard that you can't identify yourself, please bring me a sample. I always like to say, make sure that sample is either zipped in a Ziploc bag that is secure, or a lid, whichever that is. My office professionals are happy to take your samples. They just prefer if they're not live and wriggling around and can get out into our lovely extension office. So yeah, as you look towards what this year brings, I would say anticipate outside more pests, maybe less fungus, and some bacterial diseases. So there's always a give and take. And with lower water coming from snow this winter and even into the spring, looks like it'll be a little more dry. I think we're going to see more problems with pests than we are with bacteria or fungus and those type of issues. Other things that I wanted to highlight while I was here this morning is that, again, our goal with K-State Extension is to get information in your hands. And one of my favorite tools, if you are thinking about starting a garden this year, or know somebody who is going to start a garden, is our Kansas Garden Guide. And so this is a whopping 200 pages of good information about basically all things you would like to plant. So it includes information on how to plant, when to plant, what to fertilize with, etc. for nearly 30 plants that you would traditionally grow in the garden. So this is available online, but we do have physical copies we can print for you at our extension office. My favorite graphic in the book is that we do have an average expected planting calendar. So for those of you who are interested in a specific plant, you can see on this chart. So for example, if you were interested in growing rhubarb, right, you would look at this chart, and rhubarb in Kansas is most likely starting to be planted next week already. So as you look at planting your gardens, if you have any interest in planning that out for a couple months, our garden guide gives you that calendar of when you should potentially start, and then you can go back to the rhubarb page and learn all about best practices for growing that in this part of the world. So the Kansas Garden Guide is something that I use for my knowledge and answering questions with folks, but it's nice to have on hand if you ever have any questions yourself and just want to tackle those things yourself. Last thing, not only is our extension office focused on lawn, garden, agricultural producers and making that best work, we also want to engage with the larger food network here in Kansas. I think it's been 3 years since we started the farmers market back up here in town in May through October. And I think we've seen some success in that. And so one of the things that K-State Extension loves to incorporate into our work is eating local and eating healthy. And so as you look at the seasonal seasons of local food, we all know that some of our local foods are better when they're closer to being fresh than they are, stored in the shelf somewhere. So one of the things we have at Extension is what's called our local food seasonal guide. And so you can kind of move this chart around to see what types of food are best in what part of the year. So if you look at our spring calendar, as we quickly approach spring, things like asparagus, radish, peas, and potatoes are some of the things that you are going to find fresh here in the local area, especially as the farmers markets continue to come back. We'll start to see those come back. I think Manhattan is in April is when they start those back up, and we'll start ours in May. So as you look for those local food options, if you have questions about what's fresh, I can always help you with that as well. So as you look at Extension, I guess my message is I'm happy to assist in any way that I can, whether that be a phone call to answer your questions about things you're doing at home, or in the case of many folks that I've visited with, I can set up time to come do evaluations of your property, help you with those common areas that need some targeting and need some real specific measures to take care of, and happy to do so. And then, with Extension, we want to be a part of your lives, regardless of what your state you're in. Whether you have grandkids who need to learn more about a specific topic, whether you're needing counseling for Medicare, or questions about retirement, or if you want to be outside in the lawn and garden in my sphere, right? We want to help you. So Extension, for those of you who don't know where our office is, we're on 119th East 9th Street. So right behind the county courthouse is where our office space is. For those of you who've been around Junction City for a while, we often get the joke that it used to be the county health department before the 70s. So we have some folks come in and say, I remember getting shots here as a kid. This is a little traumatizing, right? So I think we're past that, but yeah, we're right behind the county courthouse. You can walk in anytime. We have some lovely office professionals who will get you the information you need, or get us, so that way we can get the information that you need to help you in your everyday world. So appreciate the opportunity to be here this morning. I didn't know if anyone had any questions right off the bat. Yeah, Bobby.
On your book there,
Yep.
I come from an older generation,
Yep.
Do you got tips on like collard greens, turnips,
Yes.
squash,
Yep.
okra, all that stuff?
Yep, we absolutely do. The only one I think that, yep, collards are in here too. So yes, so if you look at this list, there's a list of about, I would say, 30 crops. So if you look at this, all the crops that are back in this page has a page highlight of exactly how to grow. So yep, everything. Yeah.
As I was growing, as I was growing up, my dad always had.
Yes.
He always had a garden.
Yep.
And I couldn't get it out in the garden too much because I had allergies were, you know,
Sure,
real
yeah.
bad. I couldn't get out there.
Yeah, no, yep. So this book is a resource for all those. The thing that I'm not much of a true gardener either, right? Because we had chickens growing up, and so chickens usually took precedence, and they just did what they want with our garden. But the things that I really like, as you look towards kind of this part of your life, I really liked raised gardening. So you know, it's if you've seen raised beds before, but I just appreciate that there's a little less effort in having to get all down all the way. That's coming from somebody who's got a long way to go. Hopefully that might not last that long, but I like to be standing. I think it's a good option for many folks who might not be able to do the full work of tilling and reworking an entire garden. There are those raised garden beds that can do a lot of great. They probably can't graze as much. For example, you can't do a full patch of collard greens, but they can get you started, and it can be a good hobby too. So I like those raised beds, and a lot of I think like True Value and Ace, a lot of those folks will start to have those raised beds available if you haven't seen those before. So yeah.
Where'd you say we get that book?
Yeah, you can just come to the extension office.
Extension office?
Yep, the extension office. We can print you off. There's digital copies too, but I'm still old-fashioned in the sense that I like physical copies when I can. So this book is available at the extension office. We'll print it off for you, bind it, and it's just I can't tell you exactly how much it is, but I think it's around the $20 range. So just because it's 200 pages, but it is a great resource to have. Like I said, I utilize it in my work because it's pretty much got all the information I need to turn people to. So.
How do you access that information online?
Sure. So what you can do is you can just search in your search engine, if it's easier for you, Kansas Garden Guide, K-State, and it'll pop up. And we have a link to it on my website. So if you go to geary.ksu.edu, our county website, I also have links to this in the gardening section. So telephone number is 785-238-4161. You can ask for Kyler, or obviously that's just the extension line, but our Tracy and Christina, our office professionals, will pick you up and then get you to which of our agents you need to be with.
Are you into birds?
It's a great question. It's a great question. I appreciate birds, probably not quite as much as my predecessor Chuck did, but I think that's the cool part about extension is we all kind of have our niches. So my predecessor's niche, if you never met Chuck Oddie, he still lives in Geary County in Milford, is birding. Yeah, one of his passions is birding. I certainly can appreciate birds. I'm not quite a birder, right? They call themselves birders. So I'm more, one of my niches and one areas that I like to help with is farm transition planning. And so one of my areas of interest is helping families through that process. And so that's probably where I've dug a little more on extension versus my predecessor who did trainings for birds across the state. And I'm sure if none of you have met Chuck and you want to get into birding, I'd be happy to pass the message along to him that get in contact because he's still passionate about it to this day. But yes, that was one of the first questions I got when I got the job 3 years ago was, do you like birds? And I said, I appreciate birds, but I don't go out of my way to find birds. Let's just put it that way. So, yes. Other questions I can answer? Yes.
Kyler, oftentimes there is a prescription for how much land, how much space a horse needs.
Sure.
Cow needs.
Sure.
Is there a prescription for amount of space chickens need?
Not really. Chickens are our one breed that can pretty much survive anywhere. So, I think there's the definition you want to think about when you think about, people will say, well, I like free range chickens, right? Because it sounds best. I'm going to say this with love because I grew up with chickens. So they have a small enough brain that they don't care where they live. As long as they have a perch to sit in at night and you're feeding them, they don't care, which is very, hopefully I said that in a kind way, but poultry, they're just, they can be wherever. I'm trying to think, I think we can, I might have to look this up about our regulations here in town. Obviously, every town's a little different as it relates to chickens. Most towns will allow you to have hens without having the rooster. But I'll have to do a little research on that. But realistically, all they need is just a perch to be in at night that you can close up. And then the amount of space they have after that, they really don't care as long as they're getting fed. So yeah, to your point, horses and cattle, obviously, we think a lot more about our resources that they have to use in their acreage. And so here in Geary County, we have, like I mentioned, we have great pasture land. So you'll see all our horses and cattle, especially in the southeast. But yeah, poultry, I'd encourage anybody to try out, but they can take as little or as much space as they need. So, yeah. Yep.
How about ducks?
Same deal. Other than the fact that if you want your duck to stay around, you might have to provide netting above wherever you're at, because as they get old, and if you want, ducks are great companion animals, but unlike chickens, they can fly where they want to, and so you might come out one day and be surprised that ducky's no longer there if there's not a net above him. But yeah, great animals. So yeah. Any other questions I can help you with? Yes, Bus.
Is it true that brown eggs shells are normally heavier than white shell eggs?
I think that, from my experience, I think that's a wise tale. Just because if they were heavier, and I can get some research for you. So I always like to say I'm research based, but this is probably a gut feeling reaction. Is that they were heavier, we'd have every store, every egg in our grocery store would be brown versus white, just because they could get more money for them. So those commercial layers. So I mean, variation is a big deal, right? You could experience some brown eggs that have more of a yolk and weight to them, but on average, they're about the same. Color of the egg isn't that important when it comes to quality. So, but yes,
So
it's
not healthy.
no. So there's your secret. Sometimes our food marketing techniques that I think the new hot thing for young people is protein, right? Like everything, you can go to Subway and get a protein bowl now. In reality, protein's just meat. We've all been eating protein for a long time, so don't feel like you have to go out of your way unless you're wanting to, gain some muscle mass. Don't worry about having to eat all that protein. You're getting it probably in some form or fashion. So yes, some of those food labels and things we see are used for a reason, because they think that's the extra thing you need to make the sale of a healthy brown egg versus a regular white egg. In reality, both make the same thing, both have the same nutritional value. So
What's the difference between organic and
sure. So organic, it depends on what your definition of organic is. So as you look at the USDA, they can make a mark that is USDA organic certified. And so those people have some harsher regulations as it relates to like pesticide usage. So when they're growing like leafy collard, leafy anything, they have specific pesticides they are allowed to use determined by the government, so that way they can qualify for that label. But if you were to walk over to, let's just say I have a stand at the farmer's market, I start growing and I call everything I use organic. It really, I can make that claim, but there's no backing. Nobody's behind my back saying, yes, this is actually organic. So in reality, organic is great if you want to think about buying clean and buying local. I would argue that almost everything that you're going to buy local is going to be organic, because you have the grower here has much more control and has to pay a little more attention to their plants that they're trying to sell. So organic is a great label if it's USDA certified organic. If it just says organic, you can pretty much it doesn't mean anything. They just put it on a label to try to get you to buy. So if you're looking for labels, look for USDA organic.
How about in cattle?
Okay.
There's a commercial now selling Angus beef.
Sure.
All pure Angus have never been treated with shots.
Yeah. Yeah.
What are the pros and cons?
I think when you think about that, I think most people make that decision because of animal care rather than quality of meat. That quality of meat, unless you have a person who's sticking that poor cow, enough times that you can see scarring in the meat and over the counter of the grocery store, quality of meat does not take a hit if we're using antibiotics or things to take care of our animals. Now, if you are more serious about animal causes and you do believe that you should try to be as natural as possible, that's your opinion. That's great. But it's fine. I would argue, from a personal perspective, that it's more humane to help animals that way with antibiotics, because they do help them in their lifestyle and keep them comfortable, versus the organic livestock. Their claims is that they're not using any hormone injections, any antibiotics, etc. And some people, I could agree with the hormone thing, because hormone is about growth of that animal, right? So it's trying to get a bigger animal. Whereas the antibiotics thing is probably a personal peeve of mine, just because I think we all go to our doctors and get antibiotics and treat ourselves the best that we can. So if people choose not to do that with the animals, I think that's kind of a little cruel, in my opinion, because we want to make sure those animals have the best lives they can. So as you think about it from a product perspective, nothing you should have to worry about as it relates to organic or not organic, right? It's going to be fine regardless. But as you think about how the animal's treated before it gets to the grocery store, I'd say it's a little more humane, in my opinion, to help those animals the best we can. So,
How
yeah.
do you tell scarring in meat?
yeah, it's going to be circular. So because of the injection sites, it's going to be circular, and it's going to be just a little darker than the rest of that meat. So it's basically you would have to look pretty hard, but you can kind of tell where that is because it's circular, because it's just the injection, right? So it's just the immediate area of the injection, and then a little bit darker color to it. So, and it might be a little tougher if you were to eat it. So yeah, but I would say if you're going to the grocery store, unless you're doing something yourself, producing that animal, we have great meat markets here in town that can help you with that. But if you're going to the grocery store, that just won't exist because they have quality lines that they have to go through. And so any type of meat cut that experiences that from a grocery perspective isn't making it to our grocery store. If you're buying local, there might be, an opportunity where you see something like that happen, but very rare, very rare. Yes.
This is kind of a odd question, but it's just
Sure. This is what we're here for.
from
Let's go.
the past.
Yeah.
My older brother raised banny chickens.
Okay.
Do they still have them?
Oh yeah. Yep.
Do they?
Yep. Yeah, they're not quite like the popular breed right now, but yes, they still have them for sure. I think we had one come to our county fair last year. So
They were
yes.
the best guards for the
Yeah.
farm
Yeah.
in the country. Nobody could get down there without those bannies going.
Yeah, they're going nuts. Yeah, exactly right. Yeah. So yeah, sometimes they like to call the banning breeds the guard dog of chickens because they are so loud that anything can come around and you can hear them automatically. So
They were a lot of fun.
yeah, a lot of fun too. Yeah, I know exactly what you mean. Okay, other questions I can help you with?
Roosters don't always just crow at the rise of the sun.
Correct.
They can crow whenever they want.
Correct. Yes, they absolutely can. It's whenever they wake up is when they start. So that's why, when I think I need to look at the regulations truthfully of town, and I've done it before, but I believe that's why roosters are outlawed and almost, I would say outlawed, that's a strong word, but not allowed. They're not going to go hunt them down, but they're not allowed in most city limits because of that noise.
Yeah.
So. Okay.
Tyler, thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Like I said, if you have any more questions about pretty much anything, our office can help, but feel free to call that number provided, or if not, I can talk to you elsewhere and we can get something set up. Always happy to be out and about. And as much as I love our office and being in the office, it's nice to get out. So happy to go around and help out as needed.